He is known as the God MC, the quiet genius who changed rap forever without ever raising his voice. While other celebrities flash their mansions online and compete for attention, Rakim is living in a completely different world. His lifestyle is private, carefully designed, and far more powerful than anything he has ever shown to the public. Most people think they know Rakim, but they have only seen the artist. They have never seen the man behind the legend or the life he built when no cameras were around. Today, you are about to step into that hidden world and discover the real lifestyle of Rakim. From the rare machines he keeps in his garage to the expensive, high-quality assets he quietly invests in, this is the side of Rakim that even longtime fans have never heard about. Let's go inside. Understanding the lifestyle of Rakim in 2025 means looking past the numbers people often use to measure success. On paper, his net worth is usually placed somewhere between $1.5 million and $2 million. At first glance, this feels almost unbelievable. This is Rakim, the man who changed the shape of hip-hop, the man many rappers quietly studied before daring to enter the booth, the man critics call the Michael Jordan of the microphone. Every generation in rap, from Nas to Kendrick, has some part of their flow shaped by his influence. Yet, in a world where artists celebrate billion-dollar empires, Rakim's financial standing seems small compared to the legacy he carries. The truth is far more complex. Rakim became a star during a time when hip-hop was still learning how to protect its artists. His rise in the late 80s and early 90s happened long before rappers were buying liquor companies, launching tech startups, or collecting massive equity deals. Back then, most artists signed contracts that stripped them of publishing rights and master recordings. These are the things that create the type of long-term wealth people today take for granted. Artists from that era poured their souls into the music, but rarely owned the music they made. There were also moments in Rakim's career when everything paused at the worst possible time. When he and Eric B. split in 1992, the breakup was not only emotional, but financial. The arguments over royalties dragged on for years and locked up money that could have kept flowing. Later, when he signed with Dr. Dre's Aftermath Entertainment in the early 2000s, fans expected a comeback so powerful it would shift the culture again. Instead, the partnership ended quietly in 2003 without a single album being released. That gap in his catalog represents millions of dollars that simply never came. No album meant no advance, no tours built around new music, no promo cycle, and no renewed momentum. Even with all these setbacks, Rakim in 2025 is not a man struggling to stay afloat. He is stable. He is comfortable. He is one of the few artists from his era who avoided the dramatic downfalls that swallowed many of his peers. While others were forced into bankruptcy or lived far above their real means, Rakim managed his money with calm discipline. He refused to let fame decide how he should spend. He once explained that he earned good money on the road, sometimes $25,000 to $30,000 a night, but he never felt the need to buy hundreds of cars or chase a lifestyle designed to impress strangers. He watched his money, and because of that, it lasted. In 2025, Rakim earns through what people in the industry quietly call the heritage model. He does not need to chase radio singles or compete with younger artists for chart positions. His legacy does all the heavy lifting. Live performances are still his strongest source of income, but the way he performs today is very different from his early days. He no longer does exhausting nightclub runs with low margins and chaotic schedules. Instead, he performs in theaters and performing arts centers where the crowds are older, loyal, and willing to pay for a good seat. A show on his 2025 schedule includes places like the Lerner Theater in Elkhart, Indiana, where tickets range from just under $100 to numbers above $300. These audiences want to hear timeless records in a comfortable setting, and they are willing to pay for that experience. His brand still carries weight in fashion as well. Merchandise featuring his classic paid-in-full imagery sells steadily, and his history with streetwear icons keeps him culturally relevant. Collaborations with brands like Supreme tap into the nostalgia for New York's golden era of style. For younger fans who grew up studying the roots of hip-hop, Rakim's face and name represent authenticity and credibility. His music continues to generate quiet but reliable income through streaming. People still listen to Paid in Full, I Ain't No Joke, and Don't Sweat the Technique. Each song is woven into the DNA of hip-hop, and as the 90s remain a popular era for documentaries, films, and video games, those classics are licensed repeatedly. Even more importantly, his newer work gives him something he never had in the early years: ownership. His 2024 album, G.O.D's Network, Reb 7 Earth, released on his own imprint, gives him a far larger share of the profits. For the first time, Rakim benefits directly from the long-term value of his recordings. When people talk about the lifestyle of Rakim, they often speak about his music, his voice, his unmatched flow, or the way he shaped the entire foundation of hip-hop. But there is another part of his life that has quietly built its own legend. It is his relationship with cars. Not because he owns dozens of them, not because he keeps warehouses filled with rare engines, but because every vehicle he chooses reflects something about who he is. His cars were never loud displays meant to shout for attention. They were extensions of his personality, strong, smooth, quietly powerful, and built with a certain grace that matched the way he delivered words on the microphone. The car that became almost inseparable from his image was the Mercedes-Benz 560 SEL. In the late 80s, this was not just a luxury car. It was the undisputed king of the road at a time when hip-hop was exploding and young rappers were finally stepping into real money. For Rakim, sitting behind the wheel of that Benz felt like the difference between dreaming about success and actually living it. Inside that car, surrounded by deep leather seats and doors that closed with a gentle but heavy thump, he felt like he had made it far away from the struggles of Wyandanch, Long Island. Yet the moment he drove through neighborhoods, people stared in confusion. To many, a young black man in such a car could only mean one thing: the streets. Rakim once laughed about this because people simply could not understand that a rapper could be making real money. As he once explained, he and Eric B. had one of the first million-dollar contracts in rap. There was no reason for him to chase a street life when his talent had already paid off. The 560 SEL itself was a masterpiece of engineering, which was the exact reason Rakim loved it. It was powered by a 5.5-liter V8 engine that delivered a smooth and steady surge of torque. It did not jerk or roar. It glided. It carried its weight with calm confidence, almost like the way Rakim's voice wrapped itself around a beat. The car also had a self-leveling suspension system that kept the ride perfectly balanced even when the trunk was full or the road was rough. Inside that car, silence was a luxury. The cabin carried thick upholstery, soft lighting, and heated seats that made long drives feel like sessions of meditation. The rear seats could recline, which was perfect when he wanted to sit back and think. He often used that space to write, reflect, or decompress after long studio nights. Over time, the association between Rakim and the W126 Mercedes became part of hip-hop culture. The car earned a reputation as the unofficial badge of ultimate success. Even today, collectors still hunt for that model because of how deeply it is tied to the era that Rakim helped define. But the Benz was only part of the story. The other car that defined Rakim's world was the Jeep Cherokee Limited from the late 80s and early 90s. If the Mercedes represented status and quiet power, the Jeep represented the streets he came from and the community he always stayed connected to. This was the car you saw in neighborhoods across New York. It was the car the crews drove, the car that could handle snowstorms, potholes, dirt roads, and long nights of moving between boroughs. The Cherokee Limited was ahead of its time. It looked like a regular SUV, but carried a surprising amount of luxury inside. It had leather seats, power adjustments, deep colors, keyless entry, and an upright driving position that made you feel in control. On the outside, the limited versions often had gold trim and lattice-style wheels that made them look custom even when they were bone stock. Beneath the hood sat the 4.0-liter inline-six engine, one of the toughest and most reliable engines ever built in America. It was strong enough to pull, climb, and accelerate with ease, and it stayed loyal for hundreds of thousands of miles. Rakim used the Jeep for the practical side of his life. It was the car that carried equipment, family, and friends. When he moved through the city with his people, this was the vehicle that fit that world. It had space, strength, and attitude without stepping into flashy territory. It also connected him to the 5% Nation aesthetic: strong, grounded, and always ready. The Cherokee reflected the everyday grind behind the greatness people heard on the records. As the years passed and Rakim settled further into his life as a father and a man who values privacy, his taste in cars matured. He moved away from anything that looked like it was built for showing off. In interviews, he has made it clear that the ultra-luxurious, attention-grabbing lifestyle never appealed to him. When asked about supercars or expensive statements, he often smiles and reminds people that Eric B. was the one with the Rolls-Royce, not him. In 2025, Rakim lives quietly in the wooded suburbs of Connecticut, a world far removed from the loud streets he once moved through. His garage reflects this new chapter of his life. Instead of classic Benzes or rugged Cherokees, he now leans toward modern SUVs that offer comfort, safety, and privacy for his family. A late-model Range Rover autobiography or a Mercedes GLS fits him perfectly. These are vehicles with quiet cabins, smooth rides, top-tier technology, and enough size to handle winter snow without fear. They are luxurious but not loud, elegant but not flashy. He prefers cars that blend into suburban life while still giving him the engineering quality he has always appreciated. One thing you will never see in his driveway is a bright-colored Lamborghini or a Bugatti built for spectacle. Rakim has no interest in driving something that forces people to stare. His vehicles today feel like tools crafted for peace, family, and reliability. They protect his privacy and let him move through the world quietly, which is exactly how he prefers to live. Now, let's talk about Rakim's mansions. After years of fame, non-stop tours, studio deadlines, and the pressure of being the gold standard of lyricism took their toll, the God MC decided he needed peace, real peace, not the temporary kind you find during a late-night drive or a quiet studio moment. He wanted space to think, breathe, and live as William Griffin, the man behind the legend. That journey led him to Connecticut. Not the flashy parts you see in magazines, but the quiet, wooded suburbs where everything feels slowed down. The area is known as the Gold Coast, a place where nature rules and the man-made world knows its limits. Tall trees form natural walls around homes. Long stone driveways hide mansions from the road, and the nights are so silent that you can hear the wind move through the leaves. It is the complete opposite of New York's concrete heartbeat. You do not hear sirens or arguments or music spilling from passing cars. You hear yourself. Living in Connecticut gives him that. It becomes a retreat, a personal monastery where he can tune out the ego and the fame and simply exist. It is the place where Rakim the artist becomes William the father, the husband, the thinker. It gives him room to let his thoughts form without the weight of the world pressing in around him. Inside that home is the heart of his creative universe. During the pandemic, he built a new studio inside the house so he could keep recording without stepping outside. Most rappers have a home studio, but Rakim's setup carries the seriousness of someone who values sound as much as a painter values color. It is filled with the kind of equipment reserved for major recording facilities. Neumann microphones designed to catch every subtle shift in tone, Avalon preamps that warm and polish his baritone, a full Pro Tools HD system that gives him studio-level control over every breath he records. But the real luxury is not the expensive gear. It is the freedom. In the early days, recording meant booking time at places like the Hit Factory and racing against the clock because every hour cost money. Now, he can wake up with an idea, walk a few steps, and bring it to life without waiting on anyone. This freedom helped him build more control over his music and his business. It allowed him to produce parts of G.O.D's network, Rev 7 Earth, entirely on his own terms. No rushing, no pressure, no middlemen, just the purity of the craft. The rest of the house carries the same quiet sophistication. It is not a showplace like the ones celebrities love to parade on television. It is a home, a place built for comfort and stability instead of cameras. Hardwood floors, shelves filled with books he has studied throughout his life, open rooms where his family can gather, and a peaceful backyard that gives him even more privacy. The house is not a palace with a dozen bedrooms and indoor spas like some of the famous estates in the area, although properties like that exist all around him. Instead, his home balances modesty with comfort. Based on the market and his net worth, it is likely valued around the $1 million range, large enough for his needs and secure enough to protect his privacy. It is the home of a man who has lived through noise and now chooses quiet. But if there is one part of Rakim's lifestyle that has left a permanent mark on the world, it is his fashion legacy. The influence he had on hip-hop style is impossible to ignore. Long before luxury brands realized the power of the culture, Rakim was already rewriting the rules. In the mid-80s, designers like Gucci and Louis Vuitton had no interest in making clothing for the streets. Their logos were not meant to appear on jackets worn by young black artists from New York. That barrier pushed people toward Dapper Dan's boutique in Harlem, a place that felt like a secret kingdom of creativity. Rakim became one of the central figures in that movement. Dapper Dan did not create fake versions of luxury pieces. What he created were custom masterpieces made from the same materials the luxury houses used. He would buy real Gucci or Louis Vuitton bags, cut them open, and turn the material into jackets that were bold, loud, and brilliant. When Rakim wore those pieces, especially the custom Gucci jackets seen on the covers of Paid in Full and Follow the Leader, it was a cultural earthquake. The jackets had huge shoulders, oversized sleeves, and patterns that wrapped around the body like armor. For Rakim, wearing those pieces was not just fashion. It was a statement against the idea that luxury belonged to one group of people. He took symbols of wealth that had been guarded for generations and brought them into Harlem, bending them into a new language that belonged to him and his community. Decades later, the same luxury houses that once wanted Dapper Dan shut down eventually came back to honor him. Gucci partnered with him to open an official studio in Harlem, something that would have been unthinkable in the 80s. For Rakim, the man who once modeled those early creations, it must feel like a full-circle moment. He does not dress as extravagantly now. His style is calmer, involving fitted caps, simple hoodies, and clean denim. But he walks with the quiet knowledge that he helped shape a global fashion wave that brands now depend on. Even his jewelry carried meaning. Rakim never wore chains just for shine. He wore symbols. The most memorable was the massive gold chain holding the 5%er universal flag, representing the spiritual foundation he credits for shaping his mind and his music. Sun, moon, star, and the number 7 formed a powerful emblem that declared his belief system before he even opened his mouth. Those chains were handcrafted in New York's Diamond District, often costing more than a car. They were heavy, expensive, and deeply personal. They were physical expressions of the knowledge he carried. Music is also part of this lifestyle. His home is filled with jazz, especially the sounds of John Coltrane, who shaped the way Rakim approached rhythm. He listens to Coltrane and Thelonious Monk to understand timing, breath control, and how to bend a beat without breaking it. That is why Rakim's flow felt so revolutionary when he arrived. He was not simply rapping over beats. He was treating his voice like a saxophone, slipping in and out of the drums with a freedom that came from studying jazz masters. Even today, jazz remains a constant background to his life, a reminder that creativity needs space and silence to grow. Through all this, the heart of Rakim's lifestyle is his family. Behind the legend is a man who has been married to his wife, Felicia, for decades. Their relationship survived fame, distance, tours, and the brutal unpredictability of the entertainment industry. When he talks about happiness, he talks about watching his kids grow, sitting down for family meals, and enjoying the simple routines of home. His early success gave him the chance to build a peaceful life, and he never traded that peace for more spotlight or louder attention. In 2025, Rakim's days are slow, steady, and intentional. He wakes up in a house filled with quiet, surrounded by the people he loves, with the freedom to write when inspiration calls. His life is not loud or flashy. It is grounded, spiritual, and deliberate. And in many ways, it mirrors the very thing that made him great.